Hey, I'm ZSH Plays. Welcome to the Asia Animal Pack. Today we're going to be adding 3 new animals into Bellemont Zoo: the Lion-Tailed Macaque, the Blackbuck, and the Malabar Rose Butterfly. Let's go! The announcement of an Asian animal pack when we've already finished the Asian area in the zoo could be a bit of a problem. However, we have more space than you might think. By virtue of removing these 2 little patches of forest, we can build 2 new habitats today. We're going to jump straight in with some new pieces and build a habitat for the incredible Lion-Tailed Macaque. So excited to build a habitat for a new primate in the game. And some of the pieces in this pack are amazing for Asian theming. We've got these panels with the little bells attached to them here that we're going to hang on to one of our Ganesh statues. And then we're going to customize this statue with these wood panels. These are so good for that kind of Asian festival vibe, but if you recolor them, you can get some really interesting effects. They make perfect woodcuts, and we can even make them look like stone. So what we're going to do is take some of these and start making a stonework pattern for the side of this Ganesh statue, and we're going to use this sort of theme throughout the whole habitat. It's really intricate. There's loads of different designs in 3 different sizes, and if you start rotating them as well, you can get some really interesting Indian themed patterns going on. And if you saw the islands area at San Bernardino Zoo, you'll know that this kind of thing is one of my absolute favorite things to build. If you change the colors of all the flexi color options on the pattern to brown, it makes an amazing kind of wood carved effect. But we need stone, so if we color this to gray and maybe get some highlights in there, it looks like incredible stonework. Very happy with that. We're going to continue that theme around this entire habitat. Originally, I decided we were going to build this habitat using mesh and some of the new panel pieces. But what I really wanted was the ultra lightweight, very thin mesh they use in modern zoos. And unfortunately, in Planet Zoo, what we have is this. It's so big and so ugly. So after maybe 4 to 6 hours of constructing this piece of mesh here, a nice little curve on it, placing it all the way around the habitat, using the new pieces to create columns and supports for it, I just didn't like it and decided we were going to go in a different direction. I took a little break to check on our baby flamingos, and while I was there, realized that the rock walls would be perfect for the back of this habitat. So we're going to place those in, and later on we're going to replace that mesh with a completely new design, which I am much happier with. The layout of the habitat is inspired by the Lion-Tailed Macaque habitat at Berlin Zoo. We're going to have these rock walls at the back, and then we're going to surround it all with glass, and then behind the rock walls will be an indoor habitat for them as well. The way the rock walls are going to work is that at the bottom it's going to be completely flat so that they can't climb it, and then it'll be more textured towards the top once it's out of their kind of jumping range. And then we'll put some cute little doors in that they can use to get from the indoor to the outdoor part of their habitat. And then later on we'll make these about 10 times bigger so they can actually fit through it. Love the hitboxes in this game. But it looks really cute, especially once they're recolored to fit in with the rest of the rockwork. Now we can move on and build the walls which are going to create the indoor part of the habitat. And we're going to use even more of the new pieces for this. Loads of different wood paneling, and even some of the flower garlands, because if you recolor those, you can get some really interesting textures to enhance the paneling and get even more design options in there. I hope you don't mind, by the way, this video being a day later than our build videos for new packs normally are. I found that releasing both the overview and the build on the same day seems to involve both of them getting less views than the episodes normally would do. So as an experiment, I've decided to release this one day later. We'll see how that goes, and either continue in that vein or normal service will be resumed for future packs. This wall is inspired by a photo of a temple in India that I saw, which has the exact kind of intricate stone carvings that I really like. So I'm just experimenting with all the new pieces to see what we can do with them and what kind of designs and patterns that we can get on there. We're also going to mix in some of the pieces from the tropical pack with their Indonesian theme fitting really well with the Indian theme, as you would expect. And again, I'm colouring everything in brown to get a kind of wood carved effect, but I decided in the end to go with the stone so it matched better with the Ganesh statues, which we're going to use as kind of towers at the corners of the building. So once we've got the one piece of wall done, we can start using that to create the whole wall, get a nice curve on it. And once that's done, we're going to take a small section of it and use that as a standoff barrier for the outside part of the habitat so we can get some more of that theming running throughout the entire build. This will help prevent the guests getting their fingers nipped off, and now we can tackle that mesh. This is where the majority of the Zoo Berlin influence comes in. What we're going to do is put in straight glass panels, each one 4 meters wide, and then we can decorate those with some of the new pieces and get an Indian kind of vibe going in there. These are a lot more complex than the ones at Berlin Zoo. It's just normal kind of metal framing there. And once we've covered all the glass with those, it looks so much better than that clunky mesh. We can start decorating the main viewing areas and then filling in some of the other glass panels with foliage, so there are spots where the guests can see in and spots where they can't, so that the monkeys aren't surrounded at 180 degrees by the guests. We're also going to put some of the twilight decals in to get some designs that look like they're etched onto the glass. We make them grey and put them sort of in the glass, so they're neither in front or behind it. That softens the colours a bit, makes it look a bit more effective. And then we'll use our new plants, the Chinese lantern. It comes in an unflowered variant, gives us a really nice bright green kind of shrub effect that sits nicely in between the standoff barrier and the glass. So we have a kind of plant border. We're going to drop some azaleas in there as well to give it a really kind of Asian feel. The way we're going to do that is get random rotation on and just place a few of them down into a little arrangement that looks natural, and then we'll group that and copy that along this little border here. Now we can get onto the centre of the habitat. The lion-tailed macaques are amongst the most arboreal of the macaques. They spend about 90% of their time up in the trees, so we're going to need a lot of climbing in this habitat. And it's also recommended to have some water for them as well. So we'll start with the climbing. We're going to make some fairly natural looking climbing, a lot more natural than last week's crazy wicker man contraption. So we use all of the logs and the natural branches to make something that looks good. This is partly inspired by the climbing in Berlin Zoo. As well as the two trees, we're going to have a platform for them, and then we'll connect everything up with ropes in a bit. And then we're going to put the water in. We're going to use some of the mulch and stalactite arrangements that we originally made for the pygmy hippo habitat to create a simple little pool there. And then we'll cover up the joins between the mulch and the terrain with some buffalo grass. This is starting to look good already though. I like the different textures you get between the grass and the mulch, and then with some of the dead leaves lying around as well, it looks really nice. We'll get the buffalo grass in, and then we'll finish off the climbing. This new area of Asia isn't actually a complete surprise. The little patch of forest that we had here, which eventually we hid a butterfly exhibit in, the only reason it was there is because way back in episode 3 when we built the elephant habitat, I wanted something in the background so the cinematics in the episode looked good. So I just dumped a load of forest in the gap between the paths. I knew I wanted a circular path here so we could get people from the elephants through to the Eurasian steppe we built later. So a cute little patch of forest worked very nicely, but there was always the potential that we could replace that with something more interesting, and today is the day. There's no way there's going to be a new primate added to Planet Zoo without them going into Bellemont Zoo. These ropes are going to run all the way around these climbing structures. I want loads and loads of different pathways that the macaques can take to get around their climbing, so hopefully we can see them on their climbing apparatus pretty much the entire time that they're in here. Apparently the usual group size for lion-tailed macaques in the wild is 13, with a 2-to-1 ratio of females to males, so we're going to have 13 of them in here. The habitat's about 800 square meters, I think, so there should be lots of action. With all the climbing done, that's the outdoor part of the habitat pretty much finished, and we can get on to the indoor part. So we're going to put a roof in using yet more Indian and Indonesian style pieces, and some of the South American temple pieces as well, actually, to get the style of roof that I saw on the temple that I am basing this on. One day we really do need to do a full Asian zoo on the channel so we can just build stuff like this all the time. Because that would be a lot of fun. One of my hopes for this pack was that Frontier would finally make the Indian set completely flexicolor. Sadly that did not come to pass, but there are pieces in that pack which have always been flexicolor, and we're going to use one of them here, and then we're going to have some of the new panels hidden away underneath it to get a more interesting design. And while we finish off the roof, I've got something very exciting to tell you. On Saturday there will not be an episode of Bellemont Zoo because we're having something else instead. I've been working on a massive build in between episodes for the past month, and on Saturday it will be hitting the channel at 5 PM. It is absolutely enormous, easily the most complex build that we've ever done on the channel. It was one of the early ideas for Bellemont Zoo, but it was so big and would take so long to build, there was just no way it was going to make it into a normal weekly episode. So I've decided to make it into a completely standalone video. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it is very exciting. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and that will be out on Saturday. Almost finished with the macaques, and a little tip if you're using the water special effects, if you colour them so they are roughly the same colour as whatever material is behind them, the water looks much more realistic rather than just being shiny white. And because we can't get any actual water into a space this small, we're going to use the emissive panels just to suggest that there's a water surface there. And with that, the macaque habitat is complete. Time to get on to the Blackbuck. This is the space that we have available for them. It's pretty sizable actually, about 1,300 square meters, and very conveniently we already have a stable here. This is our generic hoofstock barn that we originally built for San Bernardino Zoo, and I placed it here so that there was something behind all the trees here, just so that as you were walking down this path, there was a building in the background suggesting that this was maybe a holding pen for animals, something along those lines. But now it's actually going to have animals in it. So we're going to place some knoll barriers around here. Make sure we place them a little bit back from that fence we've already got there to keep the guests and the animals separate. We'll join it up there, put in a keeper gate, and then we'll just take the fence that we built for the elephant habitat and use that to enclose the space. The vibe I want for this habitat is like you've stumbled across a little farm or a small holding in India with some blackbuck roaming around. Nothing too high budget, but still really attractive. So let's get the terrain sorted out. We're going to use the dirt brush to make that look a lot more interesting and get a mix of dirt and short grass in there. We'll drop in one of our herbivore feeders and a few other items from the Indian area, like this tree and rocks arrangement from the elephant habitat and another one from the rhino habitat. And we'll add one more of our Ganesh statues in as well to mark the end of the elephant habitat and the beginning of the blackbuck. I like the forest that we've got surrounding this habitat, but it could definitely do with more of an Indian vibe. So once we've got that in position, we'll drop in some bamboo. Just make sure that's low enough to cover up the boundary fence of the zoo so it's not distracting. And then we'll drop in a load of our ground cover blueprints, put these all around the habitat, and then individually lower each piece into the ground so it's just poking through. Really adds a lot of variety and randomness to the look of the habitat, makes it look much more realistic. You can see from up here that it is starting to take shape. You could do with just one more thing though, some buffalo grass. There we go, can't build the habitat without that. Let's move on and start turning that generic hoofstock stable into something a bit more interesting. I really want to get some Indian vibes into this building, so we'll start off with some of these new flower garlands, put those on the hooks that we already have there. And then we're going to get some more paneling at the top, but rather than turning it into stone or just plain wood, we're going to retain the colouring on this one. Once we've coloured the building itself, then we'll match these colours up to that so it fits in nicely. So we're going to change the colour of the natural wood to make it look like it's painted and get a really vibrant Indian blue on there, and then we'll change those panels so they fit in nicely with that theme. And then we can drop the whole building down so it's a bit more of a blackbuck height rather than zebra or whatever we initially designed this for. There we go. And then we've got one final piece of theming to put in here, which I wanted to do in the Indian habitat we built in the wetlands, Florida, a very long time ago, but we didn't have the pieces for it. And now we do, which is to run some Indian style telegraph wires across the habitat. These would serve no purpose, of course, it's purely for theming. But if you've been to India, the presence of obscene amount of wires above your head at pretty much all times is a big part of the experience. We can't do the kind of bundle of cables going everywhere that you often see there, but what we can do is use the string pieces to make some realistic telegraph wire that goes across the habitat and then out the other side of the habitat where it will end in the middle of a staff area, but nobody will be able to see that. Same as the ropes in all the climbing frames, we'll just do that manually, get a curve on it, join it up, and then the final stage is to join this staff building here, which we already have for the Eurasian area, onto the habitat, and that is all the habitats done. There we go. Very excited to see the new animals in here. Let's check out the macaques, blackbuck, and of course the new butterfly. The flower garlands make such good decorations for signage. Let's take a look at the macaques first. Very pleased with all of the new pieces we've got for these Asian style themes. I'd take an entire pack of those, to be honest. Here come the macaques. I love the way they strut about. They've got such a lot of personality, and the models on these guys are really good. The manes look great. Don't know why they named them after their tails when they've got that giant lion's mane, and they really are using this climbing frame a lot, which is great. Here's what it looks like to the guests. We've got that temple feel down, and here they are inside having a little nibble. Let's make our way over to the blackbuck habitat. I'm pleased we've managed to squeeze two new animals into an area that was finished, but I'm especially pleased that it doesn't feel like they've been squeezed. Both the habitats are pretty sizable, especially this one here. The blackbuck, I've got loads of room to roam around, and hopefully it feels like this has always been there and always been part of the plan. The blackbuck look absolutely amazing, instantly some of my favourite hoofstock in the game. The males look so impressive and the females are really pretty as well. Let's head to the butterfly house to see our final new animal. I've mixed up the species in here now. We've exclusively got the more tropical species in here, including the brand new Malabar rose, and here he is. I love swallowtail butterflies with that extra bit on their wings. It's so beautiful, and I like the butterfly house even more than I did when we built it with these in it. Here's where we started today, and right in the top left you can see the little change that today's episode has brought about. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you on Saturday for our special episode. Cannot wait for you guys to see that. Thank you especially to those of you who've joined the Explorers Club. Hit the join button on the channel if you want to see your name up here, and I'll see you again on Saturday for some more Planet Zoo.